Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Writer Chick with your host, Kay Nicole. So, before we get into the episode, I just want to mention that now I actually have a link to where you can donate to the podcast. If you want to donate, then donate. I mean, that's up to you. I just kind of did it to just have it, but you're not being forced. So, don't feel like I'm, trying to make you do something you don't want to do. This is entirely for fun, but I just have it there just in case you want to support. Also, about the YouTube videos, I promised I was going to do the video format. Well, where you can see my face. But my apartment is really tiny, and then the lighting is bad, and then I can't really get the right angle with the phone. So it's not coming out too well. And then on top of that, remember, I am a very busy college student. I am taking 6 classes this semester, so my level of wanting to edit a whole YouTube video on top of a podcast episode, very minimal. So what I decided to do instead, which I ended up figuring out, thank God, because at first I wasn't going to post it, but then I figured it out. Basically, you can just hear the audio version, like on here, but you get a nice little wavelength visual, you get a little spice to it. You can't see my face, but you get a little bit of a visual. Outside of that, though, there's not really much to say. Today's episode is actually about my first experience at a poetry slam and what I learned. I figured we'd switch it up a little. I mean, okay, this is still kind of writing related, but I figured we'd switch it up a little bit and do some kind of lifestyle stuff. I will actually do more non-writing related content. I know, seems kind of weird, hence the, with the name, but I do plan on doing like actual story times. I have plenty of stories to tell, so would y'all be okay if I did a poll and ask what you want the next like story time episode to be about? I'll give y'all some options. If you tell me which one you want to hear about on this podcast, I'll gladly do it. I'll probably put a poll on my Instagram page. I think you can do one on here, but I don't really have a lot of people on here, so I'm gonna just do it on my IG page for right now. So go ahead and follow me at KAE the writer on Instagram. I've told y'all this before. I'm telling y'all again. So please do your girl a solid and go follow her on Instagram if you want to be a part of the next future episode. I don't know when this is going to come in rotation, but I promise I'll do it. So yeah, please do that. Anyways, this intro is way too long already. So I'm just going to get into this now. So my first experience at a poetry slam was actually kind of cool. I went to it twice. So by the time you're actually hearing this, I've already been to it twice, but I'm feeling it a little nostalgic because of Omicron, which I think we all hate Omicron, but is what it is. Coronavirus part 3. And please, if you don't feel like listening to me rant, ramble, all of the above, go right ahead and check out the blog post version of this. It's already up. Just read it if you want the gist. If not, and you have time to kill, then feel free to keep listening. So my first experience was actually by myself, which is kind of crazy because I have a very hard time doing things on my own. It's because I overthink a lot. Basically, I have social anxiety a little bit. It's something I've always kind of struggled with, and I'm trying to work on it, but it's been a bit of a challenge. Attempting to go out and do something by myself and not talk myself out of it, big ass feat for me. I took a screenwriting class and it was like once a week, I think. And at my campus, they have like a certain strip you can go down to get to like the English building, which is where it was at. And sometimes, students post like flyers for clubs, people might promote their business, stuff like that. And I happened to actually see the flyer for the poetry slam up there one day when I was walking. I was like, a poetry slam? What? I was like, that's kind of cool. So I look at it. I'm like, oh, okay, that seems interesting. And then I found out it was actually some coffee shop that was not even like 10 minutes away from my apartment. So then I was like, well, there's no reason why I can't go. I should go. So I took a picture, followed them on Instagram, and I was like, cool, I'm going to make a note to go on Tuesday. It was on a Tuesday. So I actually remember walking in and I was nervous as fuck. And I know I'm really trying not to cuss on here. Contrary to probably believe, I have a very filthy mouth. But honestly, this is a little more candid. I'm not really sitting here trying to give you advice. I mean, okay, well, I kind of am trying to give you advice, but like, I'm not really trying to give advice right now. So excuse the potty mouth if it pops up. Anyways, moving along. I actually remember walking in and I was like, oh my God, I'm actually doing this. And best believe I did sit in the corner. And, I listened to everyone else talk and I was contemplating. I was like, should I get up there? Should I get up there? And I was like, no, I'm not ready. Oh my God. Because it's like, even with all my successes, I still feel like my work isn't really up to par with everyone else's, or it's not really good enough. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure these niggas are gonna make fun of me. Or I'm like, I'm pretty sure these people are gonna make fun of me. And I'm like, oh my God, what if my stuff sucks? What if they laugh at me? What if they boo me off the stage? That was my thought process. Which that's really not how it works. Even if they didn't like it, they wouldn't really say anything. I feel I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyways, I just really felt like it wasn't good enough, or it wasn't going to be appreciated, or I was going to make a fool of myself. It was a whole bunch of stuff, and I was convinced something was going to go wrong, so I was like, nah, let me just blend into the background. Let me not interact with nobody. Let me not get up there. I'm just here to listen. And this is what I told the host when he first asked if I was gonna go up there. I was like, no, I'm just here to listen. And he's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. But he's like, no, you really should get up there. And I was like, yeah, maybe. But I was still trying, avoid it. But then he ended up convincing me, and I was like, okay. I just wanted to keep a lot of things to myself, so I was just so terrified. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna get up there. No, 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 no. And even though my original intention for this poetry slam was to actually get up there and to speak and to be a more confident version of myself, because why not, let's try to do a little bit better, but I tend to talk myself out of things. So it just really showed me that fear is the biggest killer of all dreams, and honestly fear tends to be the biggest killer of mine. I swear, if that host hadn't kept pressuring me, I hate to say pressuring, but he's really good at getting you to get up there. Even if you're not a poet, he's still gonna make you get up there. Like he does not care. He wants everyone to speak at least once. So even if he hadn't done that, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't really be talking about this right now, or I wouldn't have written the blog post. Needless to say, I did it. I got up there. I was shaking to my core, sweating profusely, dying a little inside, and I was pretty sure that my heart was going to bust out my chest, but I loved every second of it. And everyone loved me. There was just so much magic in that room and so much love, and I've never felt so seen in my life. Like, I've never really been around people who like to write. I've never really been around other poets like that. And I've never really just sat in a room full of creatives and just listened to them pour their heart out ever. So it definitely was like such a great experience for me. And I could really feel the love. That's really the best way I can explain it. It's just, there was just so much love. It felt like coming home in a very strange way. And it was almost like a high, but like in a good way, and it made me wonder, like, why were you so shy in the first place? Like, why was I so shy to just get up there and be honest and do that, and why did I keep thinking my work wasn't good enough, or that I wasn't up to par with people? Because I'm pretty sure nobody was thinking that. And artists just want to be around other artists and to share their pain and their joy and their individual human experience, because that's what art is. It's a snapshot of an individual human experience. So most people are just there to share that. They don't really care if your shit sucks, who cares? You're doing what you love. So if you like it, they love it. And you're not here to be critiqued, you're just here to have fun. And it's something I have to remember when I go in these situations, because I tend to think that people are really going to be nitpicking my writing like we're in fucking English class or something, but we're not. That's not how that works. We're just here to listen. If they don't like it, they don't like it. That's fine. It's poetry can be subjective. Art is subjective. Some things aren't some people's cups of tea. That's totally cool, but they're not going to be rude and tell you, boo, get off the stage, throw tomatoes at you. That's just not how it goes. And I learned that. And what's crazy is I actually read 2 poems that day. One was about my boyfriend, and the other one was from my book Morning Doves. The one about my boyfriend's actually on my IG page. I think you're gonna have to scroll a little, but the first line is to my beloved. So if you want to read it, go right ahead. I'm probably not gonna read it on here. I'm just not gonna do that. Now, if you want to hear that, then cool, maybe I'll consider it, but I don't really plan on doing it right now. And then Morning Doves, you already know that's my poetry book. I'm doing an episode on this. I actually have a YouTube video about it, but if you guys also want to hear a podcast episode about it, then I can do that too. It's pretty juicy, goes into some stuff about my high school days. So if you want to hear some of that, then I'll gladly share that. I'll try to make it a little less formatted because I know the original video was kind of formatted. So it's a little scripted in my opinion. But I probably would go more into depth about like the thoughts behind it, what certain things mean, whatever. But this isn't really what that's about. So I'm going to move along. But otherwise, I think that the first experience at that poetry slam really taught me that I need to stop being so fearful of the unknown and embrace it. And that strangers can still feel like family in all the best ways. And that, being able to share a piece of yourself with other people is indescribable. It's almost like magic in a weird way, It's great. It's really great. So if you haven't experienced a poetry slam yet, I definitely recommend that you go. Even if you're not a writer or an artist or whatever, it's such a great experience. So, which is actually segueing into my second time going. So this was maybe like a week later. Back, I told my boyfriend about it, and I told him, yeah, I read the poem I wrote for you, and he was like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Dang, I wish I could have heard it." And he's like, "I'm really trying to see you up there, right?" And I was like, "Well, they're having another one." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "Cool." And he's like, "Can I go with you?" And I was like, "Yeah." We've been dating for almost like a year, and I've never been with somebody who's always my number one supporter. Like always. He just loves everything I do. He just thinks it's great. So it was just really cool because this particular one just really proved to me that people who want to support you will support you and they'll do it wholeheartedly. And he was definitely one of those people because he was the first one to clap for me. He was the first one to like soothe me if I said, "Yo, I'm getting nervous," even though I did this already twice, but the nerves never really go away. He was the only one I really looked at, or really the only one I really cared to look at, because he was the only one that I saw. You know how in those movies, like when you see the person you love and the world just kind of fades away and you're just focused on them. It was kind of like that a little bit for me. He was always the first one I looked to whenever I got done, and I was like, "Oh, look, he's clapping for me." So if he's listening to this, then shout out to you. Outside of that though, the second experience actually taught me about writing. It reminded me about how much I love writing and how much I love the rawness of it and how much I love that you can, set a mood or create an emotion with like a few syllables or sentences. And it actually really made me miss the days where it was simple. I know that sounds weird because you think most writers, if they're still writing, they love it. And yeah, of course, I love it. Still love it. It's one of my favorite things. It's the one thing I can do when I need to express myself, when I'm going through something and I can't really express it to other people, but I can do it through poetry or short stories or through characters. It's a medium, to be honest. But sometimes I think with now I'm trying to actually build something with it, I tend to get lost in the sauce a little because it just really reminded me of when it wasn't a business and when I was just doing it for fun and when it was just, just me reading it and me writing it. And I was just sitting there crafting stories in my bedroom and writing poetry in my bedroom. And it was just for me, you know? It was just something to escape from, and it just made me feel like I was back in Germany, which side note, if you didn't know, like I mentioned in my last episode about what I learned from writing my first novel. My dad's in the Air Force, so I did live in Germany. How cool is that? Yes, I did live in Germany for 3 I was like 12 at the time when I first started writing, so I was writing a lot of poetry back then and fan fiction. I know. I'm a fan fiction nerd. I don't come across as one, but I am. So if you got fanfic recs, then hit me up. For real, I like My Hero. In case you're curious about the fandom I'm into right now. Complete side note. But it just really brought back the joy I used to feel like, writing stories and reading stories and writing poetry and really immersing myself in a different world because I was kind of a lonely child. I didn't really have a lot of friends. I stayed to myself a lot, and the only real people I interacted with on a daily was like my parents. That was really about it. So being able to write stories and to craft things and to really just build my own world was a saving grace. And I kind of forgot about how great that feels. So it was really nice to just remember that for a minute because I feel like sometimes as creators, especially when they try to make a brand, they tend to just get caught up in comparisons and numbers and all the rest of the bullshit, and it doesn't really leave too much room for the joy. And I think it's really important that we still leave room for the joy because you got to have something to hold on to when it's not working out, you know? In the moments when you're upset and you're frustrated and this and that, you got to at least have something to hold on to. So I think it's very important that you still go back to your roots a little bit. So this lesson really was more of a twofold. It was just a moment to really be grateful for how far I've come and to really just step back for a minute. And it was just refreshing to be reminded that what you love is what you love, and that you don't always really need other people's validation in order to be successful, and that art can still just be for you. I think, like I said, sometimes we forget that. So if you're an artist and you feel burned out, or you're going through that, just step back for a second. Remember why you started it. That's all I can really say. So that really leads me to my final thought. Because even with that being said, I still wonder all the time, who doesn't wonder a little bit if they're going to be the next like big fucking American author. I always wonder where my writing's going to take me. I always wonder if I'm really going to leave behind anything, if I'm really going to leave behind a legacy, or if this was all going to be for nothing. But at this point, I just want to write, and if it pops off, that's great. If not, that's cool too. It doesn't really make me less of an artist. And what's crazy is I actually had this conversation with my mom like before I left for school again, and she was basically talking about how even if what you're doing doesn't pop off in your lifetime, you never know what it can do in someone else's. You never know if what you did now is going to inspire generations to come. So for example, like my grandma, rest her soul, of course, she used to love to write too. She wanted to be a teacher, she wanted to publish books, she wanted to do all the things I'm doing now. But she never did because she stopped when she was younger because somebody had stolen her poetry, and it kind of crushed her spirit a little. So she just never took the gift back up, but she always wanted to do something with it, but never did. But that, her not doing something with it eventually inspired me to do something with it. You know what I mean? She didn't really use her talents for writing. My mom kind of dabbled in it, but didn't, and just kind of went in a different direction. And then now here I am with books, and it's something I do for a living. So even though it didn't pop off for my grandma at the time, it popped off for me. So even if it doesn't pop off in the way that I think now, who knows where my grandchild or great grandchild is going to be, because they found out, oh my god, grandma was a writer and da 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 da. Wow, I want to be like that. And who knows, they might do way better than me. And you know what? That's cool too. I still did something. So, it's kind of something to think about, I guess. And the same applies to anyone else if you feel this way. And I know it's so easy to get discouraged. Like I said, go back to your roots, go back to the beginning, ask yourself why you started it. Take a moment to remember the inner child who just created to create, not to seek. You just did it because you wanted to, not because you wanted anything in return. And on top of that, if you're afraid to attend a writing event for the first time, don't be. I promise you that whatever scenario you're creating, it's just that, a scenario. It's your anxiety talking and nothing more. It's not real. You'll be fine, and your words matter, or your art matters. So just be open to receiving. I promise you're not going to regret it. It's a very life changing experience. Otherwise, that's really it, guys. I know this is kind of short. I promise the other ones will be a little bit longer. So, yeah, here's your little piece of advice for today. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this episode, and I really hope that you guys enjoy the next one that's coming.